Start, bench, cut these 3 Penn State running backs in college. Can you tell me who Penn State football is playing this weekend?
Sorry, what?
Welcome back into the Penn State Pulse. I'm your host, Dylan Dawson. Penn State kept their perfect season afloat last Saturday in Los Angeles in a far from perfect game, topping USC 33-30 in overtime. Feels like every time these two teams play, it's bound to be an all-time classic now. PSU coming back to win from being down 20-6 at halftime comes after the 2016 Rose Bowl, the last time these teams played, which, although I hate to admit it, was one of the best college football games I've ever seen. The Nittany Lions got their revenge for that one, though, coming back to beat the Trojans on a walk-off field goal just like they did to us in that Rose Bowl. So what stood out to me? Got to start with Ryan Barker, man. There isn't too much to be said. Penn State's kicking game went from what the hell are we going to do to this kid is a stud pretty much overnight. Barker was 4 for 4 on the day against USC, including that game winner, as well as 3 for 3 on his extra points. Penn State does not win this game without Ryan Barker, and it's as simple as that. He would have been the clear player of the game, too, if it wasn't for one of the better performances we've ever seen from a tight end in a college football game. That, of course, was Tyler Warren, whose name is now being associated with terms like Mackey and Heisman. 17 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown in one game. Penn State fans have known for a while how good Tyler is, but he's now becoming a household name in college football circles after that one. He also took a Wildcat snap and ran for 4 yards. I believe that was on a third down. And he also completed a pass for 9 yards, because why not? And I'm sure a bunch of you saw this one already, but on that 32-yard touchdown catch, he was lined up at center, where he proceeded to snap the ball, run straight down the field, and pluck the ball right off of the DB's helmet. Just ridiculous stuff from number 44. Let the Heisman campaign begin. Next up, this team put something on display last Saturday that we haven't quite seen to that level since maybe that 2016 year, and that is their resiliency. They dug themselves in a hole, and then between great coaching and pure will from the players, they were able to climb back out of it. Penn State does not come back from a 14-point deficit on the road against a very talented team like USC in recent years, but they did it last Saturday. In recent years, we'd kind of just see an avalanche-like scenario play out in that situation where they just keep slipping until it's not even a contest anymore. You can see Ohio State in 2022, Michigan also in 2022, and then most of the games from 2020. But Iowa in 2020 really got away from them. Those are a few recent examples that come to mind. This team had a handful of plays last Saturday where it was basically make a play right here or you lose the game, and they were able to do just that, make a play and respond every single time. A big part of that was quarterback Drew Allar. I truly think we witnessed Drew grow up on Saturday. What if I told you that in a game where he threw 3 picks, it was the best he's looked in the blue and white? It's pretty crazy to think about. But he finally took the risks, and with those interceptions came the big plays. Drew went 30 of 43 on the day, which is right under a 70% completion percentage. He also had 391 yards, a career high, and 2 touchdowns. Allar orchestrated that final drive to tie the game in regulation with some help from Andy Kotelnicki, of course. That drive went 12 plays for 75 yards, including 2 huge fourth down conversions, where Allar connected with Julian Fleming, and that drive was capped by a 14-yard touchdown pass to Nick Singleton. Every time Drew threw a pick in this game, he came back the next drive, the next play, whatever it may be, with a response of some sort. It's so important to have a short memory in those sort of situations, and that's exactly what we saw from Drew Allar on Saturday. So this one's been overlooked a bit. I haven't seen it talked about too much in Penn State circles, at least not yet. But another game for Penn State and another positive trend with the penalties. In a game where every single play matters, Penn State can't have 80 or 100 yards in penalties, or else they probably don't win. The Nittany Lions committed 3 penalties for 25 yards in that game. And that comes a week after committing 2 for 20 against UCLA. And just off the top of my head, they were probably around 6 or 7 a game in those first 4 contests. So it has been a huge improvement for the Nittany Lions in the penalty category. It does seem like this team is beginning to really come together and gel, and the penalties are just one example of that. Let's now discuss some things that's better that I think the Nittany Lions need to work on. The run game has taken a bit of a turn in the last few weeks, and Penn State struggled for the second straight game to produce much of anything big on the ground. PSU carried 31 times on Saturday for 118 yards and a touchdown against USC, which comes out to 3.8 yards per carry. The longest run by a running back came from Nick Singleton, which was the 10-yard scamper up the middle on what I believe was his first carry on the day. This comes a week after the longest carry by a running back against UCLA was an 11-yarder from Katron. So definitely a little bit of concern surrounding the run game right now, specifically the production of explosive plays. The good news here is that they've been able to get a lot of the short yardage stuff, and it's mostly just the big ones in the last couple of games that they've struggled with. The other good news is that PSU's offensive coordinator is Andy Kotelnicki. He has always been a run-first guy at all of his stops, and I'm pretty confident that he'll be able to continue that trend here in State College. It doesn't help, though, that Penn State's offensive line has dealt with a handful of injuries, which leads into my next thing to work on. It's not really something to work on, though, just more of a negative factor to minor, and that is this team's injuries as a whole right now. The second bye week came at a very convenient time because they are very banged up. You, of course, have the long-term guys like KJ Winston, Zariah Fisher, Cam Wallace, but guys that have been at least a little banged up recently, it's becoming a laundry list. Nick Singleton, Anthony Donko, JB Nelson, Sal Wormley. Then you look at the defense, you got guys like Tony Rojas, Jalen Reed, Dom DeLuca, Kobe King, and a few others. Just a lot of guys playing with small injuries right now. So yeah, this is a very good time to have a bye week. This could make a huge difference with a few of these guys where they're actually able to get back close to or to 100% before that Wisconsin game. So let's look ahead a bit, including that Wisconsin game. Penn State's next 3 games will pretty much determine the season outcome and their playoff hopes. They sit at 6-0 overall and 3-0 in the Big Ten halfway through the season. Those next 3 games, though, they are big ones to say the least. Penn State heads to Madison in a week and a half, depending on when you're watching this, to play the Wisconsin Badgers in a 7:30 kick on the road. That's any college football fan knows that Camp Randall is not a place that you want to play, especially at night. So that'll be a tough one. They then turn around and head back to Beaver Stadium, where they'll play Ohio State and Washington in back-to-back weeks. I expect Penn State to get the short end of the stick with that Ohio State game. I think that's going to be a nooner on Fox. And the whiteout against Washington is unfortunately looking like a 3:30 kick time. So not the ideal scenario for either of those games as far as when they'll be kicking off. If Penn State gets through these next 3 at 3-0 or even 2-1, they are in the playoffs without question. If they go 1-2, they'll have a case for the playoffs, but would be far from being guaranteed a spot. The Nittany Lions then finish the season with games at Purdue, at Minnesota, and then at home against Maryland. Everything is still right in front of this team. All their goals, all their aspirations are still within reach. They have made it through a handful of very tough games now, beating West Virginia and USC on the road, as well as a ranked Illinois team at home. And I'm not sure if any of you have been keeping up with them, but they're 5-1. They're still ranked. Obviously, with the 5-1 record, they still have not lost a contest outside of that game at Penn State. So that's a pretty damn good team that Penn State controlled for the majority of that game. So that is going to do it for today's episode of the Penn State Pulse. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the stress-free bye week. I certainly will. And I will see y'all again in a bit to preview that looming matchup with the Badgers.